comedy store kindly offered put me up for a short spot. And it's so much nicer to be playing a regular comedy club. Because sometimes I do these corporate shows that are really stupid. Like 2 weeks ago I was in New York. I was doing a show for this investment bank. They were doing a charity night to raise money for villages in India. And I thought this is so stupid. Because 2 years ago I was in a village in India and they were doing a charity night to raise money for investment banks in New York. Alright, like the intelligent stuff. You know, it's nice to be an Indian comedian traveling all over the world and changing perceptions about India, because I find sometimes people have preconceptions about Indian people. Like I was in Melbourne 2 days ago and this fellow said, "Oh, you Indians, you're such bad drivers." And I said, "Listen, you have to understand where we're coming from. I grew up in Calcutta. In Melbourne, you drive on the left of the road. In Calcutta, we drive on what is left of the road." One person clapping sounds like a cow shitting. Clap all together. It's interesting when you go to different countries. I was in Canada. And when I went there, backstage in the green room, because I was an Indian comedian, they had papadums. And curry. And I thought, oh, that's kind of nice and slightly racist at the same time. Why do you stereotype? If I was a Chinese man, would you put dim sums? If I was an American soldier, would you put a naked Iraqi in the toilet? And flying to the US. The last time I went there, I had a beard. I get to immigration, the officer looks at my passport, looks at me, he says, "You know what, you Indians, you're a mistake. In fact, India is a mistake." I said, "Come on, officer, as an American, you should be grateful to us." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because when Christopher Columbus discovered America, he was looking for India. So to be perfectly honest, you are the fucking mistake." Technically, that makes America the bastard child of India. Sorry, if any Americans here, don't get me wrong. That's just a little bit of friendly fire. I'm sure you understand you invented the term. I was doing this TV show called Last Comic Standing. Give me a cheer if you've heard of it. Yeah. Okay, so massive reality show, 3,000 contestants, and I got into the last 10. Because, no need to cheer, let's be honest. They have a diversity policy. What I found really amusing was how excited all these American comedians were. "Oh my God, 10 million people watch this program." I'm like, dude, I come from India. If I open my bathroom window, 10 million people. I'm honest with you, I'm not a big fan of reality TV. I got caught into it. I was living in London when this whole Big Brother fiasco happened. Did you hear about this? There was this Indian actress called Shilpa Shetty. There was a British girl called Jade Goody, and she was really racist towards her. And I was living in London and people kept asking me, "Oh, as an Indian, what do you think?" I said, "Listen, in India, 1 billion people know that Shilpa is definitely going to win." Which she did. Because think about it. How do you win that show? Exactly, voting. How do you vote? You call in. Who the fuck do you think is answering those votes? They put you through something called a Britishness test. Now, I've done this more like an English test. Unfortunately, at that time, my father was with me. He used to think that genitalia was an Italian airline. Actually, he still thinks that condominiums are small condos. Now, of course, I passed this test. And then the officer comes up to me. He says, your English is pretty good for an Indian, isn't it? So I said, well, you're not doing too bad yourself. And what really upset me was that this officer was a British Asian officer. A second generation Indian. And there's a certain kind of second generation Indian that I can't stand. The kind of guy who comes to a show, heckles you all the way through, and then comes to you afterwards and says, mate, I sing. No, your father was Indian when he came here 30 years ago to work hard so you could have a better life. But when you sit in your daddy's fucking BMW, 3 ugly women in the back, far too much makeup on their faces, thinking they look exotic, subwoofer blasting with Bhangra music, as you cut people off across on the street, you wouldn't last 20 seconds on a road in New Delhi, so you're not fucking Indian idiot. By the way, it's not idiot, it's isn't it, motherfucker? I mean, maybe we should put people through an Indianness test when they come to India. Can you drink tap water in Delhi for 2 days and actually live? Can you eat a spicy Indian curry without putting the toilet paper in the freezer? We've all heard of the sting ring, haven't we? Well, would you be willing to marry a woman who your mother chose? Because mommy is going to tell you this girl has the most beautiful eyes you've ever seen. Until you lift the parda. And realize that one eye is so beautiful, the other one can't stop looking at it. There is a lot of experience there somewhere. I will say this, it's really nice. By the way, I don't know how often you see Indian comedians, so any questions? Continue, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Because I find that I have to sort of explain our culture quite often. When I was in London, I was talking to this English fellow, and he says, oh, you Indians, you're so strange. You have these arranged marriages, these arranged weddings. I said, boss, have you been for an Indian wedding? 3,000 people, 200 different functions, 40 kinds of food. You don't know who's coming, who's going, whose feet you're touching. A Western wedding, 45 guests. These are the nameplates. This is the menu. We practice walking down the aisle. We practice the speech. We don't have arranged marriages, you do! So whatever you say, I'm just coming to India to relax and do yoga, I said, yoga? In India, nobody does yoga. We just made it up to make white people look stupid. What have you seen what we made you call the positions downward facing dog? Are you fucking kidding me? And I was talking to this guy, I said, you know what? In many ways, India is a far more advanced country than England. And he said, how? I said, well, at least our kings and princes marry beautiful women. Oh, come on, if an Indian king married Camilla, we would worship her. Because where I come from, cows are considered sacred. And he said, how dare you say that about a royal family, I'm gonna kill you. I said, well, it doesn't matter if I die. I'm Hindu, I'll be born. For all you know, sir, I'll be born as your child. And then I'll be sucking on your wife's titties and you won't even know it's me. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure to perform for you. I'm going to leave you with two small pieces of advice. Firstly, they say that women are attracted to men with a sense of humor. That's not true. But what does happen is they talk to us. And often because we have a microphone, they ask us to give some advice. So here is some advice to all the men in the room from all the women I have ever met. Go down on your woman. I always go down on mine. And the only reason I'm leaving you with that visual image. I don't know why I'm looking at you, Mitch. But when you do go home tonight, if you are mad enough to go down on your woman, as she lies back, moaning in pleasure, she'll be thinking of me. And what's even more is, so will you. You've been absolutely lovely. If you've been upset by anything that I've said today, I don't give a shit. Yeah, because I come from the land of the Kama Sutra. I can fuck you in more ways than you can count.
ladies' room over there.